How's it going, everyone? Welcome back to the Legions Lounge. My name is Matt, and I'm here with CEO of Future Lore Studios and creator of Legions Realms at War, Taylor. How's it going today?
Good. It's great to be back. Another episode, another discussion. We got a special guest with us
100%.
tonight.
We have joined with us Ryan, the Bounty Realm Menace. How's it going?
Thank you very much for having me, guys.
Anytime,
Also
man.
known as
Thanks for being here.
Ryguy McFly on
Mhm.
social media. So make sure you check that out. He's not only a huge Legion supporter, but a diehard fan of old school pop culture. So
Yeah.
Yeah,
So,
I'm a bit, no, and my name, as it so implies, Marty McFly, Back to the Future, one of my favorite social media icons. So had to make some tributes there with that. So
so you are the Bounty Realm guy. Why?
that's what they tell me. Yeah, why the Bounty Realm? I really like the questions like that, and I think games I play, especially with new players. You play when I went into Tennessee, playing cards from Bountiful Harvest, things that people had never seen. Being able to find that synergy where other people might just see jank is
Mhm.
something I really enjoy about the game. Absolutely. So being able to facilitate those little combos and things.
I've tried dabbling in it a little bit myself. However, I'm nowhere near the level that you are. I think it's a very fine art to have. Very difficult. It's difficult sometimes because you'll not only have to think about like what cards you're adding, but then what legion to put it in to like utilize the few cards that you can in there.
Well, and there's two mindsets I have towards uh, deck building with bounty cards. Really, number one, you're building it from your core engine, right? Which is either your Legion specific engine or the engine that you've utilized with um, for your WinCon, right? So out of Tennessee, I decided to play a Path to Mythic and Magic deck using Undead, which is like
Interesting.
very very much bounty. It allowed me to mill a bunch of card procking undead effects. The un, the undead engine milling is just it's very straightforward, obviously. But when you look at the bounty engine, I'm using Blessed by the Brackus Waters, which allows me to revive two warriors. Um, People are very off put by warriors being revived on their turn, enter play effects, things like that. It really forces them to play around your effects. And
Exactly.
there's not a lot of cards in the game right now that negate from the eradication zone, right?
I think
So
there's a
uh,
few. There's Steal
there are
Their
now.
Fate.
I know Warcleaver does as well.
Oh, it
But there
does
there
too.
are there there are limitations, right? So not every legion has access to all of that, and as most of us know, Seal Their Fate is a expensive promo right now, right?
Exactly.
So it's not maybe as accessible in the meta as we'd like it to be. So
Exactly. And it's also one of those cards that's very hard to like not only come by, but it's also a card that's you're not guaranteed to see it. It's like not retrievable or it's not anything like that, which makes it very, in a sense, difficult because it's
I
more of a
think Brian
gamble.
brings up a really good point here is the fact that the bounty realm cards, just like other card games that have a generic card type or a colorless card type,
Hmm.
even if you go into Pokemon with the normal card type, right? They're typically overlooked just because they're kind of a last minute addition. They're
Yeah,
the pieces that you kind of use as filler for your deck or maybe some sideboard options or sideboard text and stuff, right? And going forward with legions, right? Like we have obviously future plans to roll out more and more bounty cards as time goes on. We saw a whole set dedicated to it in Bountiful Harvest Season 1. And
hmm,
eventually, when a Season 2 returns, we will be revisiting that as well. And I think that right now, given the fact that Legions are very tribal in terms of you can only choose one color, and then the Bounty Realm is the only color that is a colorless card that is splashable into every deck, you typically see them as those tech cards or those choices that would typically just focus on those kind of things. And I think that when you look at Ryan particularly, he views it in a much different way. And I think that's really refreshing in a player base that is so focused on their specific Legion favorite or things like that, when really, you know, Ryan's favorite is the one that people all look at as just filler typically.
Exactly, and it's pretty awesome. I'm very excited for all the more that like Bounty has to offer, since I feel they're going to get more and more powerful. I'm excited to make a magic mask deck when there's more magic masks. That seems very fun. Hopefully, I'm excited to see the magic guardian, if there is a
Yeah.
magic guardian.
It's
Yeah,
Viv.
well,
Viv's the magic guardian.
yeah, so going into that, let's break down some cards here,
Mhm.
some things that make Bounty Realm your favorite, and what you think going forward, when it comes to these characters, what they mean for the story, what they mean for the development over time, and what they mean for the game overall. I guess let's just start with Viviana, because
Mhm.
Viviana the Festival Royalty, she's the box art on Bountiful Harvest. And she was the game's first guardian that was below renown level rarity, right? So she's the most accessible for new players. So walk us through that, Ryan. What do you think? How has she impacted the game? How has she changed the game since she's been out? And what are your overall thoughts on her character and card in general?
Well, obviously, as you both know, one of my favorite, if not my favorite guardian so far. Um, just being able to search Welcome to Alberdun first turn has been the reason why Welcome's been limited to one, right? Being able to have that consistency, be able to make that, like if it was a three of, you wouldn't maybe necessarily see it first turn every turn, right? So, um, in itself, Viviana just for welcome was a reason a lot of people played it. The ability to get other magic cards, be able to get your Void Hollow, be able to get magic, drain the Magic Quarry, be able to get Magic Moonlight Promenade, things like that. As well as another Alberdun card when you use your consume cost, just make her super useful, very accessible. $5 to buy it, like just you can go to the
Exactly.
store buy one for $5, right? So it makes her so nice for newcomers coming into the game to get her.
Exactly. Like
Um,
sorry to cut you off,
no
but
problem.
I typically like whenever I find someone new, I typically have like I've opened a fair bit of Bountiful Harvest. I have like 5 or 6 just spare Vivianas, right?
Yeah, well, and it's always nice. It is always nice to have one extra. You'll have a new player come in, you hand them a Viv. Yeah, that they're really appreciative of it as long as they have a trader district or something in their deck to give it that value.
Exactly.
Um, it is really worthwhile to run her. I think out of Ravaged Lands, all of the Guardians, for the most part, gave you some sort of advantage over your opponent. Um, Viviana was the first one that guaranteed each guardian would get a +1 to, or each warlord gets a +1 to their hand, right? Raylene
Exactly.
is a -1 to your opponent. Demons were a -1 to your opponent. Um, war or heroes got an extra card, right? So it just gave all of those different warlords some consistency. So
It gave the same with like now obviously on the opposite side of the spectrum, instead of the only one not being a renown, talking about Serena Sada
hmm
being the only exalted guardian. She makes it so then like you can, although you're not getting plus a card, you're like more refining your hand, which
absolutely,
I
yeah.
don't know if that's worth it in every scenario, but I find more scenarios than not, Serena's always good to have, especially for some of the guardians that don't have too much support as of right now, or at least too much support that I would want to see.
hmm Well, Matt and I are in a very interesting situation because I mean we have the benefit of asking the creator, the guy who made the decision, why would you
Exactly.
make Serena Sada exalted over Viviana? I know Viviana being the box art, everybody kind of thought she was the number one pull,
Hmm.
but is there a reason you chose that?
Well, actually, interesting thing concept is that um, the number one thing we wanted to do coming into Bountiful Harvest, one being a small supplemental set that was cheaper and easier for people to get a hold of, but also just a universal set in general, being an all colorless set, being able to splash in every legion. We wanted to have. We knew going in that there was two key important characters in our storyline that needed to be put into Bountiful Harvest. and both those characters obviously being Viviana, the Festival Royalty, and Serena Sada, the Secret Soothsayer. Now, both of them, we knew that we're never going to be, because they're both magic users, making them warlords just made no sense, particularly because then you have to add all the other dynamics of synergy in a Veil realm and everything for Bounty realm, and a lot of that seemed just premature for the game at that point in time. So it was a no-brainer for them to become guardians, and at that point, it was now deciding how we were going to treat this, because with Bountiful Harvest being a small set and trying to work on the set algorithms from a design standpoint, we knew that only one card in the set could be exalted. Just so that we didn't have too much of a top-heavy set being so small. I didn't want to have so much chase in the set that it became too taxing for individuals to purchase. So we had to choose one character in the set to be exalted. And now I know Ryan being the big favorite of Viviana and her being the box art, you would think that it's almost like a bait and switch to put her on the box art and not be an exalted in the set. But storyline wise, Serena Sada plays in a very integral point to character development of other characters going forward, and we really see that in Empires on the Rise as we approach there. But without a doubt, Viviana is very important. But Viviana's role in the storyline pertains to Alberdun and Alberdun alone, whereas Serena Sada has an effect on the greater world. And just in that aspect right there, between the two character dynamics, we felt as though because Serena Sada had such an impact on other characters outside of the world that she was in, we felt as though she was the one deeming worthy of the exalted status. With that being said, then we needed to make sure that for new players coming into the game that maybe couldn't access the renowned guardians that were found in Ravaged Lands, they needed to have access to a generic guardian that they could be played at or found at an easier rate, and that was the role Viviana was going to be playing. So now with her whole concept, her storyline, and her design tailored towards being a more obtainable guardian, the next step was to make her universally good and make her be obviously not too powerful for her rare status, but also making it so that she was completely splashable and could impact the competitive game right away. And we felt that she was best utilized as a support feature, and therefore her power doesn't come from her ability itself. It comes from the power of the support cards around her. So building into the archetype of Alberdun, and as we explore bigger and bigger, that this city becomes such an integral part in the game that she was the royalty of the city. So as a result, her power pieces around her are often found at the common and uncommon level, and will be continuing going forward when more Alberdun cards are revealed. That when all of our characters return back to Alberdun again, you'll see that Viviana continues to get support, and she will be that universal character always throughout the storyline. She herself, if you look at her card artwork, is she actually derives from her heritage comes from the mythical beast world. So she is actually part harpy. So there'll be ties into that in the storyline as the sets go on as well. But overall, the main focus for her was that she was supposed to be the catch-all universal, and basically that early entry and easy entry for new players, but also had a really high skill ceiling if you could use her effectively in competitive play.
Very cool.
It's very interesting. I actually never knew that she was part harpy. I think it's very interesting. Like I think...
I mean, she's got the feathers all over her face, and she is part bird. She presents herself obviously as royalty, and walks the streets, and everybody just oohs and ahs over her, like Ryan has, But that's what I mean. So her going forward, she has a big role to play, and you see some important things like Alberdun's Trader District that specify that if you use Viviana, you don't have to pay cards cost. You're going to see a lot more of those cards in the future, specifically when it comes to Viviana, because her being the royalty that it is, when it comes to Alberdun in itself, the city just bows to her, right? So
exactly, it's awesome. I'm very excited for the just for where the set's going. It's seeing how the bounty realm develops is very interesting, in my opinion. I've always been a slight fan.
Uh,
Never like never
Well,
die
hey,
hard like
this has
Ryan, but
really been there hasn't been a really true enough, to go die hard here. And the Corsair Despair might change a lot of people's minds on that, right? But
no, 100%.
mhm,
I think Corsair Despair is going to be super interesting because I personally, although not too sure, I feel like it's going to be very accessible to a lot of players as it's
mhm.
just one deck that's already pre-built opposed to a deck that you have to fully build and then like find all the pieces for. It all comes all at once, very similar to a starter deck,
Mhm.
which I think always has
So
some benefits.
so with that, then pivoting a little bit off of the Corsair Despair, Marianas, but also the discussion here with Bountiful Harvest and the Bounty Realm, pivoting towards our set that is in the public eye right now is on for lack of better words on the rise. Empires on the Rise has is a set that is unlike anything we've seen thus far. It's a set with no Bounty Realm cards in the main part of the set. How do you feel about that, Ryan, as a Bounty Realm aficionado?
Uh, I think obviously post Bountiful Harvest being the second set that was released, we go into Empires, which had what, like maybe 7 or 8 bounty cards total.
In Frontiers, yeah.
Yeah. You look at the number of cards, right? And I don't believe I've done this in a while. But certainly the percentage of bounty cards in the game is abnormally high, I think, at this point. So I think adding a set that's entirely no bounty post a full bounty set is, and obviously I don't know if this is kind of your company's view or not, but obviously I think it's smart just in that sense of it here. I know there's been a lot more interest um, with the bounty set as more of those cards have come into like the 5K lists. I know a lot of people play cards at a Bountiful Harvest that were in the 5K. I think Miss of the Fata Morgana, dismantles, cards that aren't necessarily as easy to get out of the battle decks, you can get in Bountiful Harvest. So there's lots of value in it. So I can see why that there's no bounty cards. I'm a little rattled about it, clearly, but no, I'm just teasing. In a perfect world, I think what'll happen is this will kind of shake things up. It sounds like we've got, from the spoilers, we've got maybe this complete bounty deck coming, later on. We're getting 308 card set here coming. We're getting 8 new warlords, 8 new guardians, 8 new synergies. You know what I mean? So it's going to completely change the meta as it is. Um, Something we were talking about before we started the interview here was kind of like what Empires on the Rise is going to really do for the game. And
Exactly.
I think something that um, it might be overlooked or whatever. Maybe I'm the numbers guy and can just see this. We're like doubling or tripling the game here. We're making cards that have never seen play in Ravaged Land become like
Super
king
viable.
pieces, right? Absolutely. Cards that are currently going for like $5-6, they're going to be like king pieces in decks, and Ravaged Lands is at a print. So some of these rares and stuff are going to be extremely hard to get your hands on. Um, I don't want to say extremely. Let me knock on wood, right? But they're just not going to be maybe as available in the $5 slot as they were when this set is being announced, right? So,
There's going to be an increase of interest.
absolutely, and investment and interest and stuff like that. So, um, as far as what we've seen for Veils, Warlords, Guardians, synergies, there's some support for some of the original battle decks. I think some of us thought like the Mythnal Beast got shorted on their battle deck. What it came with, and now we're getting a Mystic Fire. Phoenix Hatchling, Fire Chicken support synergy, which is so cool. You know what I mean? I think there's this set really kind of puts some pieces where I think people in the community have kind of commented, you know, uh, not necessarily comment in a bad way, but try to find how things synergize, right? So
Exactly.
Well,
I,
I think if you really look at it from a design point of view, what we've been trying to do up to this point has always been it's really like a mosaic, right? And it's just this it's like a giant puzzle, and each set, each card that comes in those sets, it just adds more pieces to that big mosaic, that big puzzle, right? And
mhm,
you know, commenting on what you said is some of those you're talking about, some of those king pieces, some of those, those uncommons or commons, or even some of the a few rares that didn't see or haven't really seen any competitive play out of Ravaged Lands. People look at it as like, in the very beginning, uh, why is this in the rare slot? Or in the beginning is just like, oh, this goes into my bulk box, right? Because I don't see it doesn't, this archetype or this style of play is not really what the deck wants to do. And
mhm.
I think people are really starting to, at least from what I see from the numbers, and just like when I look at website views, and I see a huge uptick in traffic of the Ravage Lands card gallery, with every card that gets spoiled for Empires, because I think people are starting to really go back and
Mhm.
see, wow, like they really they really did lay the foundations.
Mhm.
Um, Ravage Lands really did put out the blueprint to how to move forward, and these Empire pieces are coming in and building off of some of those foundational pieces, like you're talking about, that are now going to start seeing play. People are going to start, pulling open those bulk boxes and digging through for those cards they never thought they were going to use, or they thought were maybe filler at the time, but actually they all had a purpose. And um, I think
Absolutely.
that I think you're going to see some value hikes on some Ravage Lands cards, and as a result, I mean, if it's enough across the board, it could affect the overall cost of the set, especially now with it being out of print. Um, but I think overall, Empires really, it fills out the game, right? Like you said, you're almost doubling the card pool in a sense, because adding 308 cards, we've never done that in a set before, and now we're putting it to the point where when Empires is released, we're chipping 1,000 cards in the card pool for the game, right?
Mhm.
Crazy. Yeah, I'm very excited for it. I think it's, as a game that's extremely new, like tipping 1,000 cards within just over like a year, or like in their second year, is crazy. Like it's unheard of, you know?
Well, and kudos to the testing team and stuff, because I helped a little bit with testing on this set, but I've had some life stuff going on.
Hmm.
So I have, as far as what to expect out of this set, even from what I've seen as far as the spoilers in, so, things have changed a lot, right? So
Hmm.
there's things that I think the one that I saw that was a big surprise the other day. It was the support for Stronghold of the Mortal Flame, giving all your hero boys +10. And I don't remember seeing that card. That was that's a new, and that's really cool though, right? And that, again, Stronghold of the Mortal Flame, 11.99 on Atlas Collectibles website right now. I was just looking at that today, and you're gonna see that card. I don't think it's tipped over $15 since release, right? Because the synergy from that battle deck is draw 8, right? So
Who
everybody
doesn't
just
love
wants
draw
to draw
8?
8. Exactly, exactly. So now having a card like that, especially as a fortified in a deck that's so fortified oriented already, it's going to be really cool to see how that shakes up the meta. So I mean, I am I am absolutely ecstatic to play this. There's cards like the Dux Box archetype in
I'm
Ravaged
so excited for
Lands.
Box, man.
If this is the first card you activate this turn, you don't have to pay the next, or you don't have to pay the cost. And there's negates for Duxvox and all sorts of stuff. And I mean, we've all doted over the art coming out of this set, so I think we're all pretty excited about it.
Hmm. Speaking
I
of,
know. Well, go for it, man.
what do you think like Empires will like do to the game?
Ha! Uh, what I think so far, I think effect damage is going to be very prevalent, clearly from what we've seen from the card pool. Um, Card effects, Loksharna out of Frontiers. is like you don't take effect damage with a perish effect, right? So in a deck that's going to have so much conscript, there's a charisma sprite now. You know what I mean? Being able to have cards that prevent effect damage when they die, when they activate those perish effects. These alternative win cons, being able to outthink your opponent, bring out a boy, pop it, negate all effect damage. That timing, knowing how those cards resolve, knowing how to outthink and outtime your opponent, is going to be so much more important to the game. And we've doubled the card pool, right? So playing one demon player, for an example, will not be the same as playing another demon player. Probably
Exactly.
ever. You know what I mean?
One of my favorite things is I'm excited to go to a tournament with because you only have to show your warlord at the start of each match.
Mm-hmm.
Show Castiel, they go, okay, I'm ready for like a super fast Lost Messiah, full Seraphim.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I think that'd be very funny. And it'd be probably viable too. I think I've talked to you about it before, where it's full counter generation and then go into Serena and then
Yeah.
Oblation reset Oblation. It'll be interesting.
Turn 3 deal.
Yeah.
Deal ridiculous damage. Yeah, and I think that is a very viable. Like you see Castiel get to turn 3, and you're probably not going to survive unless you have 4 negates on the field, right? Like, and a fog.
Which is crazy to see for angels typically, right? Because it's like that's a complete opposite is what you'd expect them, right? So
absolutely.
I think that's going to throw players for a loop. I think really Empires on the Rise is going to be a great set, obviously for our existing player base like you guys, but I think it's going to be a great set for a new player jumping in.
Oh, 100%. Because I remember, I think you've said it before on here that, but there's a very high chance that you can build a deck right out of the box.
Well, and yeah, no,
I forget
absolutely,
the
and
exact number, but
I think the benefit that all the new players get in this situation is that you, as a company, or your company, Taylor, have been very receptive to the feedback of the community. And just in that, I think this set has been carved out by the feedback given by new players, existing players, stuff like that, which I think is really cool. And, thinking about my first time opening a Ravaged Lands box, I've opened a ridiculous amount of Ravaged Lands. Do not tell my fiance, and just want to make sure to be clear on that. But it's a really fun set to open. It's really good. It was really difficult to build a full competitive deck, getting all the guardians, all the renowns you needed. I've built everything, right? So I'm talking like master set stuff. It was a lot harder to get that. I think we're gonna find master sets are going to be probably as hard to get, but we're going to be able to get all the deck building pieces that we need. We're probably going to, you've reprinted Ravaged Lands Exalteds in this set to be able to, help meet some of that need that we're seeing because, people are still looking for Kindle Haas, right? People are still looking for Twilight Gardens. I guess we're not getting Twilight Gardens. Well, we are getting a Twilight Gardens reprint, but I
possibly.
don't think it's in this
Possibly.
set.
Yeah, there's some works with the Twilight Gardens. We did spoil that a Twilight Gardens reprint is coming with an alternate art, but if we achieve the stretch goal, then you'll see it on the box toppers for this set. But if not, then they'll be put into something else down the road here. So
I see.
So we will get them at some point eventually.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. All right.
And just a quick question. So do you need the Ravage Lands Exalted to get the master set?
No, you don't. No. So if you look in the card pool specifically for Empires on the Rise in the card gallery on the website, you'll see that they actually yes, they have technically an EOR set code to make them different than Ravaged Lands. They are a second edition card. They have a silver shield, Legion shield crest on them, so it's very identifiable that they're second edition. They are still the Exalted still have the 5-star gold plated stars. They still have the gold plated swoop, but the cards are no longer foil. So it not only do you have the silver shield crest, but the non-foil is going to be very identifiable that they're a second edition card. But
See,
going to your question about the master set is the fact that yes, they do say EOR to make them separate because that is the set that they were reprinted in. But they're coming in as an EOR HD, so standing for hidden drop. So they're actually not part of the EOR card set. They're not part
okay.
of like the two, because technically EOR is a 265 card numbered set, and then you have the cards that fill up to the 308 are the different variants, the different special chase cards and stuff like that. But
And
the 265 is the actual set core itself.
so for the master set, do you need to get to 265 or 274?
So even the Revolution cards are going to have a unique set code to them when they're finalized their print. So
Oh, okay, okay.
for the complete master set, we're going to make it so it's just the 265. So then that way it's easier for people. I mean, it is still 5 more cards than what Ravage Lands was for a master set, but you won't need to get all 308. But if you want, obviously, if you want the varied cards and stuff like that and all the specialty bling cards, you can. But ultimately, that's for the collector. But yeah, so for the people who just want to get the master set, to say they have all the cards in the set, it's only going to be the 265 required.
Hmm.
I see, I see. And
Now,
some of the cards
card number 265 is the Elysian though, so
a little difficult.
Good luck.
Yeah, very much good luck. But some of the cards you won't need to get a full playset of for the master set, specifically like the veils. Would you only need one veil? I believe you
yeah,
would.
exactly.
Yeah.
You only need one because that's the playable set
Yeah.
of it, right? So
Right.
just
One veil, one synergy, one warlord, one and then one guardian of each, which is
correct.
I
Yeah.
think is very nice because then
Very cool.
there's, if I believe correctly, I think there's 28 renowns in the set.
Yes. So if you're counting, there's technically 20 renowns in the set. The other 8 are once again those second edition hidden drops.
Oh, very
So
interesting.
when you look at the Kickstarter and you look at the whole breakdown, it shows you the full breakdown of the 308 cards. But for the actual Empire's set number of the 265, it's actually only 20 first edition renowns in the set.
Okay, that's awesome. So
And with we have the breakdown of the boxes are a little different now in terms of the fact that in one booster box, as opposed to getting 2 renowns like in Ravage Lands, you're now getting 4 in Empires. So
exactly.
a little easier to get those renown rares.
Something I still forget is I was like doing the math and I'm like, you're gonna be getting a lot of like big hits very often in this set. And I was realizing, wait, you have 2 rares per pack.
Yeah, you do. So like we moved it up to a 15 card pack. So with that 15 card pack, now it's the breakdown of 8 commons. I think it's 8 commons, 5 uncommons, and 2 rares per pack.
Yeah.
And the reason we did that is because there are more rares in the set. We're up to, I believe there's 48 rares in the set, if I remember correctly. So with having 48 rares in the set, that's a lot to get when you're opening only 1 rare per pack, right? So at having the double rares in the pack alleviates some of that, but also allows us to get really cool and really fun with some of the hidden stuff, right? So the for lack of better words and explaining it, so if you have rare slot 1 and you have rare slot 2, let's say rare slot 2 is specifically for Empires in the Rise rares, but also Empires in the Rise renowns or exalteds.
Exactly.
But you see rare slot 1 are for Empires in the Rise rares, but also that's where you might see the sketch foils drop in there, or you might see the fractured foils drop in there. You might see the countdown card appear in there. You might see the Ravage Lands hidden exalted second edition drops find its way into that slot. So having the double rare slot allows us to get really creative with the algorithm. Really creative with the algorithm. So now it's going to allow us to have potentially a double hit in a pack at a different slot. So I think that's going to be really fun for the players and a really awesome opening experience. I don't know how Ryan feels about that. A guy that likes to crush box openings, but
Well, I was just looking at the Kickstarter page here. It actually on the Kickstarter says 2 or more rares per pack, which I just you know what I mean? I understand the implication of what this means here. There's a potential of a god pack, right? There's a potential of a
there
really
is.
good, right? So that's awesome. That's awesome.
Is there the potential that you can pull 2 exalteds in one box,
Oh, for
like in
sure.
one
And
pack?
there's also like 2 exalteds in a box will be, I'm not saying easy by any means. It'll still be a very rare occurrence, but it has a likelihood of happening. Um, but 2 exalteds in a pack could, at a very, very, very slim chance, could appear because there is a double rare slot, and one slot might be the first edition Exalted from Empires, and the other slot might be the second edition Exalted from Ravage Lands. So
That'll be
there's a
pretty
chance.
awesome.
Awesome.
Imagine
So cool.
opening it up, seeing Kindle Host, and going to the next one, and you see like
Latar.
Latar. Yeah, I was gonna
I
say
was hoping for like a
Purification
god.
Wave.
I was just hoping for a god dwarf pack. That's the dream, right?
It could be a God Dwarf pack, right?
Mhm.
But then you also have the chance of, you could potentially, theoretically, you could hit a pack that's got a Exalted in one slot and the Elysian in the other,
Yup,
right?
This
that's
is yeah,
extremely rare.
yeah, yeah. Well, you're gonna have to crush some. We're gonna have to crush some boxes here. Clearly, I myself, I've pledged for a case, and then I pledged for 5 more boxes. So it's not
Hmm.
quite a 2 cases, and that's my argument. And if anybody tells my fiance, just say.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
She does not listen to our podcast, so I think it's safe to say here.
That's good then. You don't ever want to condone not having listeners, but in this situation, for your sake,
Hey, I we have listeners. I know we do. We
I know
chat.
we do, yeah.
Yeah, um, and you guys, I just want to say, you guys are doing an absolutely fantastic job with this. I'm sorry that Andrew couldn't be on today. He's a buddy of mine, and we chat off and on here, give me some support through some losses I've had in my life and stuff like that. And I know he's a good guy. So if he's
Oh,
not
he's
here,
awesome.
there's good reason. And at the very least, I'm glad I could come on and pump this game up because the Kickstarter, we've got what 12 days left. So we're
12
Almost
days
there,
left
yeah.
as of right now recording, and I mean, this episode is going live tomorrow, I believe. So if you guys are listening to it now, it is Monday. So
11
um
days. 11
so it'll be
days.
11 days from the day you're listening to this. Yeah. So this will be the second last podcast to air before the Kickstarter concludes. So yeah, like let's pump it. I mean, I think right now we're sitting at 60% funded.
Yep.
Let's try and get a big push in this last like week and a little bit, right? And let's get it there, right? We want more than anything to get this set out to people as soon as possible, right? And the Kickstarter reaches full funding, the set goes right into production, and it gets into people's hands at the end of April, beginning of May, worst case scenario, right? So if it doesn't get funded, it doesn't mean it's over by any means. We we're a new game and a new company in its infancy stages, and especially in today's fragile market that we're in with inflation and everything, every company takes its hard knocks, and we're in the beginning of year 2, and
Hmm.
we're no different than anybody else in that regard. So um, Empires on the Rise will see people's hands. It will see store shelves. If for whatever reason the Kickstarter doesn't reach full funding, that doesn't mean by any means that Empire's not coming, because it is. It just means that it will, obviously get delayed back a little bit, and with the goal of then having it come out around the time that we'll be attending Gen Con in August, if
Hmm.
that's the case. So we'll just have to do a little bit of restructuring, a little bit of shifting stuff around. But ultimately, the main focus of Kickstarter was to get the attention and eyes on the game. I've been, ever since the Kickstarter launched, I've been, you know, I would like to say not surprised, but the amount of people that have reached out to me, contacts people I've never heard of before, or have never met before, and they're reaching out to me and they're like, "Wow, we didn't even know you existed," right? I think the Kickstarter was a big thing for us to take one giant step out of obscurity. Um, I think mainly because in a market where it's been flooded by TCGs as of late in the past couple years. But on
Well,
top of that,
said that, right? So it's just that's what the thing is. I think that between the Kickstarter, like you're not just some random game trying to put itself on the shelves for the first time. You've got an existing player base. You've got people who want this set to come out. So, like you
Exactly.
said, right? If it does not come out today, you still, or if it does not reach the goal in the 12 days, you've got all of our support of the community, and we I'll keep buying product till we see it happen, man.
yeah.
Let's be real. I gotta keep opening Exalted to make everybody sad. So.
Well, that's the big thing is the fact that this is the set the game needs. This is the set that
Exactly.
everyone's been waiting for, and it's the set that's I think honestly is the tipping scale for the game that really helps us push our way out of obscurity. And I think that I don't think it gets talked about enough in the industry, just how hard it is, how much of a mountain it is to scale as a small indie game, right? Like it is an arduous task, and it is not for the faint of heart. You got to love it because it doesn't love you back, right? And the community offers a great support, and without them, without you guys, like we wouldn't exist, right? So like that's obviously the bread and butter. That's the backbone of everything. But um, I've been slowly leaking out some behind the scenes footage and stuff of showing the amount of work that we put in on a daily basis, just to try and produce the best product we can for everybody. But that uphill battle of pushing out of, I keep saying obscurity, but it really is the truth, especially as we're a game coming out of Canada, right? Canada is a very small market. Yeah, we have 38 million people in this country, but when you look at the United States, they have 10 times that amount.
Jeez.
A mass market like America, and the mass market of Asia, and the mass market of Europe, like those are markets that are difficult to break into, right? And we've really tried to spearhead our way into a couple pockets into the United States, and we feel that Gen Con is going to be another big leap forward for us in August, being put on a large stage like that. And so obviously the main goal would be not only to get there and do well, but to have empires in hand for that event as well, right? So that was the main focus of the Kickstarter this early in the year, was to get it underway. The set's done and waiting, right? So to get it underway, get the eyes on the game, get the funding, get it forward, get it printed, get it produced, get it out to people, and have that quintessential core set for Gen Con. That's the main focus. So
Exactly. I'm very excited. All these conventions in the summer, they're going to be amazing. I think they're really
Absolutely.
going to. I think we found like good views from Fan Expo. Personally, at
yeah,
least,
we
I
did.
believe.
Yeah. Last August, this past August, we did Fan Expo in Toronto, and yeah, it came out really beneficial for us. We were jam packed for 4 days there. I know Ryan attended and helped us at London Comic Con. Is a much smaller venue, closer to us in our area, but Gen Con is as big as it gets, man. It is the best 4 days in gaming in all of North America, right? So it's going to be a 10.5 hour drive for us down to Indianapolis, but
Oh wow.
it's worth it. It's worth it to be there, to interact with everybody, and
How is it
you know,
longer than Tennessee? It wasn't Tennessee like we didn't, I don't. I need to check a map, man. We anyway. We ended up in Indianapolis on the way back from Tennessee. That's why I'm
we
confused.
crossed into Indiana. We didn't go
Oh,
necessarily into
okay.
Indianapolis, right?
Okay.
We crossed into Indiana on the way
Yeah.
back, right?
Yeah. Okay. Okay.
Slight difference, I assume.
But yeah, we're hoping that Ryan came down to Tennessee with us and did a really good job and helped us along the way. And hopefully, fingers crossed, he can join us in Indianapolis for Gen Con as well. But I think just that's, like I said, the Empires the set has been with me for so long. It's been in the studio. These characters have been with me for so long, and I wanted to get it out to everybody, and indulge in it further. This world is rich. These characters are powerful, and they got a story to tell, right?
Exactly.
And I don't know how you feel about that, Ryan, going forward in terms of Empires on the Rise. I know you were talking about what it's going to do for the game and everything like that, and for people that are listening and people that may have backed the Kickstarter or haven't backed the Kickstarter, do you have any message to anybody about the game, about our roots, our expansion?
Absolutely. Well, and I mean, I kind of think I touched on it, and on what you said here, Empires on the Rise is going to be a quintessential set. When this set comes out, it's going to be the set that everybody remembers, because this was the set that really made the game take off. I honestly know that. I know there was some learning curves with Ravaged Lands, right? Just and there was, I think, as far as like maybe Bountiful Harvest wasn't maybe as popular with others as it was with me, right? But this set is really, I really strongly feel if you don't get in on this set, you're gonna miss out. I really do feel that. So the fact that we have this awesome opportunity to talk to you, Taylor, about this, the fact that we know a lot of what's coming, we know that there's a lot more kind of core staples in different decks that we're waiting on to see. You know what I mean? So there's so much more to come. There's so much more to see, and I think we're all really excited to get our hands on this product. So for anybody listening, I would personally recommend you fund the Kickstarter. Just in the event that you're gonna end up buying it for 120 bucks from a retailer anyway, right? You might as well get it on its sale. So
Get it for a discount, and it's
exactly.
I think that's a really good point, Ryan. For anyone that's listening to this or has been sitting on the fence about the Kickstarter or watching it along the way or just hearing about this for the first time, is the fact that this is a box that is our biggest and best yet, right? By no means does that mean that it's going to be massively overpriced and sitting on the shelf. Ultimately, we want to stay competitive with our competitors. We understand that we are still a new game in the market, so in no way, shape, or form are we going to infringe on that or getting close to that Magic or Pokemon level of product pricing. We ultimately want to keep it fair, fun, and affordable for our community and for new players to jump into a new game and take a chance on it. And Empires brings a lot to the table in terms of it being the first set in Legion's history that you can build an entire deck out of a box. We've never had that before, so that, and you're looking at probably an MSRP cost on the store shelves that's going to be probably around 110 Canadian, which is going to fall into that $85 American, probably for a booster box. So when you look at that compared to the Kickstarter pricing right now, right, you see it listed as $90, and that's Canadian because we're a Canadian company. So you're seeing it listed as $90 Canadian. So you're looking at pretty much $20 off of what the MSRP would be. And that translates to $67 American. Now,
Jeez.
I can't think of another game that retails a box for $67 American for a booster box of this size.
No.
For how many cards are in the set?
Not for a new set.
How many cards do you get? No, how many cards do you get? Sorry.
15 times how many packs? Plus the box topper?
Yeah, if we get to the box topper, yeah. But that's what I mean. It's the fact that that the sheer volume of what you get, and the Kickstarter was such a great deal. And as you scale up, right, like you get to the Renown, the Exalted tier on the Kickstarter, your boxes end up becoming cheaper as time goes on, right? As the tiers go higher. Not to mention, we have that great promotion that's lasting the whole Kickstarter, is that if you order Renown tier or higher, you get 4 additional boxes, right?
Oh,
so
I forgot about those. I wasn't counting those in the case plus 5 boxes. Anyway, that's fine. More to open.
Now you have two
Yeah.
cases.
Oh man. We're gonna have to be doing some sort of giveaway or something too here. I'm gonna be doing like a giveaway on my channel here, just to support the Kickstarter here. I might have to do that before it comes out to get some more eyes on it. So, um, yeah, I know. I really, again, I really appreciate you guys having me on and being able to talk about this. Um, there was one last thing that I wanted to mention,
Okay.
just if I can, and that was there was cards, bounty cards that I care about. We talked about Viviana, we talked about Serena Sada. Plateau of Prevailing Winds. This card
Interesting
is
card.
so good, so good. Just such a ridiculously good card that I was talking. I think we've all kind of played games with Travis and stuff like this, and he came up with this combo that I didn't think of with heroes. Plateau Prevailing Winds. I was using with Aided by the Squire. It worked really good with Orcbane March of Death. You know, you bring out your guys, you play Plateau, you put them back, you bring them back out again, you get pure hand advantage. But with the Fandorian Outpost, you
Oh,
know,
true.
it's yeah, it just you put them back, you search another one, it's pure value, right? It's such a good little combo. And I mean, there's things like that I really enjoy about this game. Splashability. You can make a entirely blue deck, and then splash Plateau Prevailing Winds, or splash um, Secret Savannah, or splash. I don't know. There's even Valley of Magic to reduce your consume cost, right? If
Valley
that was a
Magic's
big,
such a fun card. I want to
well,
use it so bad.
well, and it's one of the. I was going to talk about that too, but I know we're getting on in time here for the for the podcast.
Oh no, we're all good,
So,
man. We're all good.
yeah, but the like these are cards that you can build a deck that's all bounty, but you can also add a bounty card in that fundamentally messes with your opponent. Magic Mask 3-Eyed Dark, Plateau Prevailing Winds, Secret Savannah, disrupting cards, things that throw your opponent off, things that are splashable in almost anything. But if you think about those combo pieces, there's some really fun things to add into that, and that's why I personally really liked Bountiful Harvest. I like the fact that there were enough cards in the pool that I could make M Schiller Isles actually like guaranteed. You know what I mean? Like shuffle a thing in off the deck, right? But um, that was more for the smiles and the jank than anything, right? So
I think you're missing
But
one Bounty Realm card.
what am I missing?
M. Scheller Isles.
Isn't that what
you
I just
just
said?
you just
Oh,
said that.
did he?
That's what I just, that's what I was just talking about.
Oh, I thought you were talking
Yeah.
about Valley of
Build the top
Magic.
card of your deck, shuffle one in.
Oh
No, I
shit,
said
my bad.
I said
Sorry.
No, you're okay. You're okay. No, Valley of
No.
Magic is also really good, and I mean that was one. Even reading it over the past few weeks, I'm like, okay, I could have made that work in my Magic deck in Tennessee. But there's a lot. You're playing it, and then you're either playing it again while you have one, so that you're just putting Magic cards in the bin, or you're eradicating them to add one to hand, so that you can multiple times reduce your consume costs and abuse it. You know what I mean? So there's different things in that you can.
I think you bring up a really good point with some of those those little hidden gems, Ryan. Like obviously Plateau of the Prevailing Winds, we knew it was always a very good card, and that's why it's slotted at the rare slot, right? And it's one of only 2 rare bounty realm cards that and Drain the Magic Quarry in Ravaged Lands, right? And inherently because those ones were lower count because there's only 20 bounty realm cards in the set, right? So as a result, that they ended up being a little harder to find, particularly those rares, right? And now with the set out of print, I think that's a really good thing that people listening to the podcast should know about, is the fact that we have these key pieces that are going to be a little harder to find now, but they're going to be really super relevant going forward, right? So I think those are those things that if you have them in your collection, you might want to take a second look at them, right, and really look at what they can do for you going forward.
No, exactly. I'm super excited. It's gonna be I feel like once Empires comes out, there's gonna be a couple people digging through the last bit of Ravage that is out right now. One could say they're ravaging through it, but
Yeah, yeah. Again, I was sitting here today. It was like 2 o'clock. I'm like, I could just drive to Woodstock and buy a box of Ravaged Lands, you know. So I didn't, but I thought about it.
you were close to it.
Yeah, I was. I really was.
That's the problem. It's like I'm always like,
Well, and
there's like
that's why
a
we need.
few cards I need.
Yeah. Well, I have the full master set, and this is the thing. I'm opening it because the pull value. I open an exalted knowing that there's 15 people around me that'll throw me $100+ for the card I just pulled, right?
Exactly.
So, and there's a thrill in that. There's a little you know, a little excitement, right? A little piece of candy.
That's actually one thing I wanted to highlight while we have you on here, Ryan, is that I know when you've been with us since the very beginning. Like I believe I actually met you at our flagship store, Nerds, before the game even launched completely, right? And so you've been there since the very beginning in terms of product release. I know you've said to me before in the past that opening Ravaged Lands, even though it's only just a little over a year old now, it feels nostalgic.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But that experience of, I believe you broke it down once about Ravaged Lands and what you think your perception of the value of the cards in that set moving forward. Breaking down the approximate pull ratios of some of the renowns and exalteds. And now that we have, I know Matt's a big numbers guy. Now that we have that we disclosed to everyone that the print run for Ravaged Lands was only 1,600 boxes. I'm sure you guys could really solidify what some of these high value cards, what more of what their potential true value could be.
Yeah.
Yeah, like there's only probably roughly 50 of each exalted because of the like at most 50 of each, given the the machine could have errors since the algorithm's never perfect, although it's very, very good. There's always going to be some room for error. And then also the packs that are in the battle decks as well.
So are those packs part of those print run numbers?
Yeah. So it's 1,600 booster boxes, sealed booster boxes printed.
Mm-hmm.
The packs were additional to the booster boxes printed, the packs that were seeded into the 2-player battle decks.
Mm-hmm.
But I do have to say that the packs that were put into the 2-player battle decks, although we can't have a true proper calculation based on algorithms, but they do have a pretty good chance of hitting some bigger pulls out of those booster packs that are found in the 2-player battle decks. And we kind of did that and leaned in that favor a little bit more to give those early adopters of the game, the players that buy into the battle decks and learn from the very beginning, a little bit more of that wow factor when they open it up.
Exactly.
And that chance of hitting a big hit is a little slightly higher, but it still doesn't affect the actual pull ratios in the decks. But like Matt said, without disclosing the actual number of each exalted printed to its real true value or true number, but yeah, you're in a really healthy approximate ballpark there, Matt, as a nice. 50 of each, right? So
I
pulled
like
10%.
I pulled 10% of the Magic Void Hollows in the world, is what you're telling
me. Yes, Ryan, actually, yes.
Damn, that's crazy.
Diamond hands.
I think
that's what I mean, right? And I think that's one of the things that for collectors looking at this, right? We know that when you approach Kickstarter, when you put it out on there on Kickstarter, obviously the players in the community are going to come out and support you in full force, which is what you guys did, which is excellent, right? But I think when you put it onto Kickstarter platform, it's also a great platform for collectors and investors to get into games, right? And we saw that very much so in the 2020 boom of TCGs, right? Mm-hmm. And I know it's a obscure kind of thing when you see like a game that's already existed for a year, like us, go on to Kickstarter, right? Then they're like, at first the collectors and investors go, well, It's not the first product. So is it something I can really, put value into or have value in terms of getting the product and then, you know, trying to sell it immediately or hold on to it for longer periods of time, is the fact that when you look at how low our print runs are, how open we've been with everything about that, and then currently what our secondary market is for some of these bigger hit cards, right? And now knowing approximately how many of each of these bigger hit cards that were printed, um, that right there, that screams collectability.
Mhm.
Exactly. No, it's such a it's a game that has a very like I don't want to say flippable, but like each box will retain its value, almost guaranteed. By the like you open a Ravage Lands box, you're almost I think I did the numbers, you're like almost guaranteed to get the same amount of value in the box that you pay for. And like with Empires being at a cheaper discount, you're making like so much more value off of things.
Well, and that's what we've seen with Frontiers, and obviously, I think that that goes with feedback given from the community and stuff. I think as well, you guys have improved like foils and um, like I really like the box toppers, the warlords. I think that made
Mm-hmm.
the game really accessible as well. You know what I mean? So I think there was a lot of things that Frontiers you guys did really well with, and I'm really excited to see what this newest set has in store for us here. So.
100%.
So anything else that you'd like to add, Matt, or like to ask Ryan or talk about here before we conclude?
Um, let's see. So, how did you get into Legions?
That's a very good question. And this kind of goes with the question that Andrew normally asks, so I'll go
Mm-hmm.
into it. So I started trading card games. I'm just kidding. No, but I was originally a OG Yu-Gi-Oh fan, and I got into it when I was a kid. I played for it for years. I was in grade 9, and I actually went to a Judgment of Light tournament. Got my parents to drive me from Belleville to Toronto. They dropped me off in this big, I think it was a Marriott hotel, and I was just by myself in this room, right? And I'm a big kid, so I had a really bad experience, and some older kids were just rude, and people took advantage, and it wasn't necessarily a good time, and that really affected my view of the community. So I'll be honest, I not necessarily stepping away from the game, but stepped away from competitive play. Played really casually. I brought my cards with me to college, but never really played. Um, I actually had a bit of a change in my life, and I had a bit of time off, so I started getting back into Yu-Gi-Oh and finding the meta being what it is today. It's just broken, right? So um, I found myself really open to new games. And interestingly enough, I one day went in Nerds Cafe, flagship store, came in, sat down, and saw this promotion for Legion Drums at War. And I don't exactly remember the timing or the timeline or whatever. I had taken a photo with Prometheus, and that same day I ended up meeting Taylor, and we had a nice discussion. He came over to me while I was trading with these younger kids, and I have a policy that I will not take advantage. You know what I mean? You gotta let them know the value. You look up what their card's worth. You're trying to help them, right? Because that's how you
Exactly.
build a good community. And I think Taylor saw that, and I think that's kind of why him and I hit it off so well right away. Him and I have a lot in common, and that's the other reason we hit it off. But the reality of it is I was looking for a new game. I'm looking for a game where positive community is important, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's something that Legions has done very well without being preachy about it. Really emphasizing the positivity and kind of just disregarding people who are being negative. You know what I mean? I think that's something, even in our Discord, if we see negativity, we just talk over it. You know what I mean? And I think that's really the best policy with some of this stuff. So, not that we can't have conversations and stuff, right? Like we can have legitimate conversation. I think Taylor's piped up and responded to some feedback in the Discord. But um, what drew me to Legions was the community and the game, and and it really just went from there. It speaks for itself. So.
No, exactly. And I think you especially are such an amazing member of this community. Like you've helped me so much when I was getting into the game. I know you've helped tons of new people as well. It's truly amazing to see.
Yeah, well, we had a new player last night, third hunter. You know what I mean? At out at Atlas, right? And we've got more people joining all the time. So good people playing a good game. It doesn't have to cost a lot. You know what I mean? And I think something that Taylor said to me when I first met him. Having a place you can go, like a game store, and supporting that local game store is so important to not just like the game, but the community that game store exists in, right? A small town like Woodstock, kids can be breaking glass bottles in in parking lots, and I'm sure they do. You know what I mean? They do elsewhere in the world, but having that ability to go and have a game that's Pokemon in itself even is super expensive, right? Being able to go and have a game that's cost effective, that you can get a lot of value out of, that you can sit down and teach lots of people. It's got some gore, it's got some curb appeal, as I call it, right? We got Belladonna, we got Noscalis, right? So there's lots of stuff for everyone. You know what I mean?
No, it's
Yeah, I think that's the crucial thing, right? Game stores did a lot for me growing up, and it's just kind of one of those like kind of pay it forward things.
Hmm.
I think that in a world where we have a capitalistic society, and obviously we're a business and we have to make money to keep going, right? That's the whole concept of being in business. But is that you gotta nurture a community. You have to have that support, because ultimately the difference between playing video games and playing card games is what is the human interaction, really. You're
Hmm.
playing a game otherwise the same, right?
Hmm.
So when you have that human interaction of being in person with someone, seeing their reaction, seeing their body language, um, you know, playing in that real personal, that raw connection environment, I think as the human species, we need that, right? And
I think
you
kids
know,
need that too. Kids, like,
exactly,
yeah. Hmm.
that growth, that development, especially on young impressionable minds, right?
Yeah.
And I think if you breed positivity and acceptance, in quite simply in game stores, is some of the more accepting environments in our world, right? So
Very true.
it's one of those places where you can come in from all walks of life and just immediately be accepted for the fact that you have one commonality of playing games,
exactly.
right? And I think that's been a really great part. I think, like, I agree with you, Ryan. I think that's how we hit it off, and I think that's and you've been doing an excellent job with the community in regards to that going forward, up to this point. And you're a great asset to have in regards to welcoming new players with open arms, and helping the community grow and blossom from there. And I think that can't really be stated enough about, like, community is the backbone of the game, right? You have to have a foundation. I talked earlier in the podcast about Ravaged Lands laid the foundations for us to build sets off of, but it's people like yourself, Ryan, and the community that lay the foundations to build a strong game and work together to scale that TCG mountain.
Hmm.
100%.
Hmm. Well, I really appreciate that, and um, I want to just say, behalf of myself, everybody else who is like-minded and enjoys your game, thank you for all your hard work. I know maybe it doesn't get said enough, but we really appreciate all that you do hosting the events. I know you don't have to order us pizza when we have a little tournament or something, right? We can go down to Subway or something, but these sorts of things are what really not I mean, besides the pizza and stuff, but it's something that we really enjoy about just like your company and spending time and about the game. We just really appreciate all that you do and all the hard work and the game development and everything. So thank you, Taylor. Thank you so
Thank you
much.
so much. Yeah, it goes a long way, man. It's awesome.
Like I said, we couldn't do it without you, right? So um, it's you give a little to get a little, and
Sure.
and that's it. if the community is willing to work with us, we can do amazing things together, right?
Yes.
And that's where, you know, I've always been a person that doesn't like to ask people to do something I wouldn't do myself. And, you know, if it was Ryan making this game and he had it up on Kickstarter, I'd back it. Right. And that's what I'm saying, is the fact that, like, I very rarely do you hear me ask anything from the community. But for those of you that are listening that either haven't backed it or will back it at a smaller amount or whatever, I know everyone doesn't always have expendable money, and that's something I can't ask you to bend over backwards and break the bank for. But that's why we try to do our best to keep everything at a reasonable or a discount rate for everybody on the Kickstarter. But this is me asking the community, right? Support the games you love. Back the games, back the community, back us, because we're the ones that, like Ryan said, we show up, we put in the work, we put in the time. We are there about growing the community, growing the player base, growing the game. Because those who work together and strive together succeed together.
100%. And I think that might be a good place to wrap it up for tonight.
I think so too. And Ryan, thanks for coming on, man. I really appreciate it.
Oh no, thank you guys again for having me. And you know, I tried not to be long-winded, but you know, I really enjoyed it. And if you guys ever want to have me again, I would be thrilled to hop on and talk about anything else. You know, we can talk about, well, as long as it's Legions related, right? So.
Yeah, that's the point of the podcast.
Exactly.
And so Matt, before we go, where can anybody find us now and all of our previous podcasts and future ones?
You can find this and all of our previous podcasts on Spotify, on Anchor, on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Overcast, Amazon Music, iHeartRadio, Castbox, Stitcher, Radio Public, and Pocket Casts.
All right, so everywhere that you can stream anything audio. Awesome.
Exactly. All right,
streaming everywhere. All right.
Exactly. All right. Well,
I guess until next Monday, guys. Have a good week. Share all the links. Share all the information about the Kickstarter. Let's work together as a community and let's push this game forward.
100%. Have a good night, everyone.
Bye, guys.